First off, Nebraska, like we mentioned in the lead of the show, is 9.5-point underdog. Open as a 10.5-point underdog. But overall, how do you feel about that? Like, I feel like in some ways I get it, but it's a little steep.
I actually don't think it's too far off. This is going to sound crazy, but it's a whiteout. Penn State is now fighting for bowl eligibility to salvage. It's homecoming. It's a night game. They have a chance to salvage some of their season. Granted, they were pretty much unanimous playoff team preseason.
Yes,
obviously disappointing year that they've still got something to play for. But when I look at their game last week,
and they have Rutgers the last week of the season, so very winnable game there for them.
Yeah, they got 2 winnable games on their schedule, and I've said that. I think Nebraska 7-3 is a little bit of fool's gold. I don't think we've had really a tough schedule this year. I think we're still a good team. I just their inability to stop the run. I mean, we got 2 games left. They ain't gonna get better. Penn State's gonna run it just like they did last week. They ran it 50 times or 40 times. They're gonna do the exact same thing. Can Nebraska hold up for 4 quarters when Katron Allen's got 25 rushing attempts and Singleton's got 15 rushing attempts, and even Grunkmeyer had 8 scrambles, which that game late he scrambled well.
I was going to talk about Grunkmeyer a little bit because he's more athletic than people give him credit for. Now here's my thing, because listening to John Butler talking about the lead up to this game, it does, it seems like they're really, really challenging, and Matt Rule talking about it seems like they're really, really challenging these guys. Like, hey, they don't think you can stop the run. Like, can you go out there and prove them wrong? And Butler talked about there's a lot of things we do well on defense, and that's 100% true. Yeah. But it seems like this week, like he's like, if I have to go out there and make the 12th tackle, talking about tackling and stuff like that too, like I will. Do you think that extra kind of commitment and challenge to this team of like, they're going to come in and they're going to try to run the ball all over you? And I know we've had a lot of issues with mobile quarterbacks, especially, and Grunkmeyer again is more athletic than people give him credit for. But do you think that challenge can kind of get this team up to really kind of go out there and be able to stop this run? Because the thing about it is, what they're wanting to do offensively, of course, as we know, is run the ball. But not only that, I'll talk about it a little bit when we get into their offensive game plan, but they're going to want to try to stretch the field a little bit as well, because they're going to want to run the ball and then open it, kind of like they did against Michigan State. They kind of stretched the field a little bit, and then they opened up some of that passing. And then they're going to want to balance those two things out. But Grunkmeyer can throw the ball, and they do have some deep weapons, and he didn't really have to do it too much. But whenever he had the opportunity, they did have big pass plays. And over the last couple of weeks, especially last week, with the running game working a lot more, they were able to operate a lot more off play action, more than they have for the last 4 weeks. So that's another aspect of this too, is they're going to want to come out and operate off that play action. But yeah, do you think that commitment to stopping the run and without trying to have to commit too many extra bodies to it? Because again, if we start to do that, then that opens up what they want to do with that deep pass game. And again, Grunkmeyer's gotten a lot more comfortable over the last few weeks, or over the last 2 weeks. Again, they didn't ask him to do too much because he didn't have to do too much last week. 240 yards on the ground, like, you're of course not going to have to do too much. But the 3 weeks prior to that wasn't great in terms of their overall. I think I got the numbers here. Over the previous 3 weeks before that, they had Iowa. I mean, yardage wise, they had 173 yards, but on 46 carries. Against Ohio State, they had 31 carries, 55 yards, 1.8 per carry. Indiana, 117 yards on 33 attempts. That's 3.5 on an average. So last week was the first week in the last 4 that they've gone over 4 yards per carry at 4.8, 50 attempts for 240 yards. But that really opened up a lot on play action. And so, yeah, do you think that challenge is going to be able to kind of instill confidence in them, or at least that challenge is going to fire them up to come out and make that happen?
I don't see why they don't make them try and beat them through the air, because they did have that one big pass to Doss, who's like their one big playmaker, 75-yard touchdown pass. It was a beautiful throw, beautiful play design. To me, it looked like it was a busted coverage on a cover 3, in which one person did not know it was a cover 3. And so he went in man instead of
Yep.
being the deep safety on the right side of the field. So,
Mm-hmm.
but when I look back at that game, and they had 204 yards rushing, which is a lot. It was what? I'm looking at the box score here. It was 14-10 start of the fourth quarter. If you told me Nebraska's given up 180 yards rushing and it's 14-10 in the fourth quarter, I'm not overly worried about it personally. To me, it's going to be about not letting those explosive plays kill you. You can't give up that 75-yard touchdown run or pass.
Trevor Pena is another guy. Just a heads up, Trevor Pena is a guy that's a deep ball threat. I believe he came from Syracuse, but he is a deep ball threat for them as well. Now he just kind of hasn't found his footing there overall, but he was targeted more. In Indiana, he had a really good game. I think he finally went over 100 yards last week. Didn't have a ton of yards, but was targeted the most. So Trevor Pena is a guy who can stretch the field as well. So they got a couple of guys that we're going to have to, kind of be mindful of. But
yeah, I'm not. They do have some guys. I'm not overly worried about their passing game compared to our pass defense. I mean, USC is the most prolific offense we've faced this year, and we made them look pretty pedestrian.
However, if they're running the ball at 5 yards per carry, that's going to open that up. And that's my thing. Does that become a worry? Do you think this team can come out and commit to the run? Because again, Grunkmeyer I believe Andy Kotelnicki is just finding a little bit more confidence. I believe, like from watching, the games back of Penn State, he just seems a little bit more comfortable. And mind you, the guy came out, and we're looking at his numbers since he started. He came out against 3 top 10 defense. I mean, you have Iowa, Ohio State, and Indiana. And then when we had an opportunity to potentially see what he was going to do against a bad Michigan State defense, they didn't have to use him a lot. While I'm not overly concerned with their pass game, the fact that they went last week, I believe, let me see here. I got it in my notes. They went, let me see, what was their play action percentage? So against Ohio State, 78% was non-play action, right? And they didn't have a lot of success. So when he's just dropping back and passing against Indiana, 62% was not play action. Only 37% was play action. Again, not a lot of success there. But then last week, 61% of their plays were off of play action, and they were very successful off them. Yeah. And so that's the one worry is when they do get that run game going, when they get that play action going, it's going to be one of those things where I just want us to be able to come out and not have to sell out on one or the other. I don't necessarily think that's going to happen. We talked about this before. It kind of is what it is. But if there's any week to kind of show that you have some fight, in that run defense, this has got to be it against these 2 running backs right here, because you cannot let Ethan Grunkemeyer kind of beat you with the arm, even though he's a young guy, even though he can throw the ball. You want to turn him into a drop back passer as much as possible, because all of their success comes off of play action.
Yeah, and if you can win on first down and make it so that second down is second and long, that will be huge for Nebraska, because their third down conversion last week was terrible. For the season, it's not great either. They were 2 of 10 last week on third down. So can you slow down the running game enough, I guess, is what I would hope, because I don't think Nebraska's good enough or talented up front to stop it. But can we slow it down? Is that possible?
That's what we gotta do. At least slow it down enough, because if you can turn Grunkemeyer into an attempted pocket passing quarterback, like we've seen what Kotelnicki wants to do. He wants it play action, because every opportunity he's had to be a drop back passer has not been extremely successful. He reads a lot better when he's got that little bit of extra time. And so it's going to be interesting. I'm just really curious to see how our defense goes about it. I'm curious, do they stack the box? Do they send an extra guy? Because we've seen at times the defense has kind of been, at times we thought they might stack the box. It seems like we've kind of played a little bit more of a conservative style of defense at times and ramp up the aggression. So, but again, Grunkemeyer is a guy that we're going to have to also be able to just, get some pressure on, because the problem is when they start running the ball well, we've seen it happen time and time again where you get those quarterbacks a little bit more time, and then you kind of leave when you do get pressure off the edges, you leave them on an island. And Grunkemeyer is athletic enough to be able to get out of those things too. And escape the pocket. So I'm curious to see how well we contain him to the pocket as well.